The sun sank heavy across the horizon, staining the sky with streaks of fire and blood. The land below lay parched and endless, a quilt of dust and sagebrush stretching toward distant mountains that glowed like iron in a forge. On that weary land toiled Jacob Marlowe, a rancher with nothing to his name but a half-ruined herd and a soul worn thin by grief. He was not a man of fortune nor of renown, only a poor cowboy whose hands were roughened by years of toil and whose heart clung to one fragile treasure. Around his neck upon a simple leather cord hung a silver necklace. It was plain enough to strangers' eyes, no gemstone nor gold, but to Jacob it was the world entire. For that necklace had belonged to his mother, a woman whose strength had carried him through famine and storm until fever carried her to the grave. It was the last echo of her presence, the only proof that once, in a world of cruelty, there had been love. He wore it always, not as adornment, but as remembrance. One evening, as the sun bled into twilight, Jacob drove his cattle toward a narrow creek that carved its way through Apache territory. He had walked this land many times, careful, respectful, keeping his distance. Yet fate, that cruel trickster, had a different design for him. Hooves thundered against the ground, rising like a storm from the ridges. Warriors swept down upon him with the swiftness of hawks, their painted faces gleaming in the fading light, their arrows trained upon his chest. Jacob froze where he sat, reins tight in his calloused hands, every muscle coiled with fear. From their midst rode a figure who stilled the chaos like a sudden hush in a storm. She sat her horse with regal ease, her back straight, her eyes sharp as black glass. Braids laced with feathers swayed against her shoulders, and the fading sunlight crowned her in gold. Jacob knew without doubt that this was Nylin, the Apache queen, whose name was carried in whispers across frontier towns. She was no myth, but flesh and blood, a leader who bore her people's grief and wrath with unyielding pride. Her gaze moved across him, pausing at the glint of silver resting against his chest. With a hand raised, she halted her warriors, who lowered their bows but did not ease their eyes from him. She spoke then, her voice steady and low, but commanding as thunder. "Oh, that necklace. Where did you get it?" Jacob's breath caught. His hand rose instinctively to the chain, curling around it as though to shield it from her eyes. It belonged to my mother," he answered, his voice carrying both defiance and plea. "She wore it every day until the fever took her. It's all I have left of her." The queen's expression darkened, not with anger, but with something heavier, memory. She dismounted, each movement flowing with the grace of authority, and stepped toward him. Her fingers, slender and strong, brushed the pendant, not to seize it, but to trace it with reverence. Her eyes seemed to search beyond the silver into the threads of history itself. "This is not just yours," she murmured. "This was crafted by my people, forged by our silversmiths for the daughter of a chief, long before your mother's hands ever touched it. It was taken from us in fire and blood, carried away in raids, scattered into the hands of strangers. We thought it lost." Her gaze lifted to his, sharp as a blade. "And yet here it hangs upon you." Jacob felt his throat tighten. He saw the warriors behind her shifting, their murmurs low, some calling for its return, others silent in deference to their queen. He clutched the necklace tighter. "I don't deny what you say, but I swear on my life it was my mother's. She gave it to me before she died. If you take it, you take her last breath from me. Take anything else, my cattle, my horse, even my rifle, but not this. Please, not this." His voice cracked, raw with desperation. The queen studied him long, her dark eyes holding his with an intensity that stripped him bare. And so the plains whispered a new legend, carried in the wind and told by firesides, of a poor rancher who dared to speak to the Apache queen. That necklace was my mother's, and of a queen who chose not to take, but to give. What happened next was not war nor vengeance, but the forging of a bond that outlasted the dust of time. A silver necklace became the thread that bound two hearts, two histories, into one.